The government has put on hold the district training program of controversial IAS officer Puja Khedkar, who is under the scanner for allegedly forging disability certificates to clear the civil services examination. She's been asked to report back to the Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration by the 23rd of July. Now, this is the premier institute responsible for training our civil servants. A letter by Additional Chief Secretary of Maharashtra, Bahadur, said that the academy has decided to put Khedkar's training program on hold and has immediately recalled her for further necessary action. To remind our viewers, Puja Khedkar, 34-year-old, came into the limelight after reports about her alleged demands for a separate office and official car and the unauthorized use of a beacon in her private car. But of course, what is more important is that Khedkar and her family, her father is also a former government official, the family seem to have exploited a system that was known to them. A system that is critical for our nation's processes and administration, a system that is also aspirational. Getting into the IAS is seen as life-changing for lakhs of families. Public servants are respected and they enjoy privileges, and in turn there is probity and proper moral conduct that is expected of them. Does the IAS training and certification need a clean-up? Filters of sorts to identify those who enter the system only to misuse it? Are children of influential families misusing it? Does the training of IAS also need to be equipped with lessons on moral conduct and of course public behavior? That's what we ask tonight. Joining us on this broadcast is Sudhir Krishna, who's a retired IAS officer, former Urban Development Secretary. We also have Yashovardhan Azad, former IPS officer. He's also been part of the CIC, the Central Information Commissioner, and we also have K. Mahesh, who is IAS President, Delhi Administration Officers Academic Forum. But first, before we go to our guests, thank you all of you for joining me. First, let's listen in to what my colleague had to say with regard to this update in this case.
Trouble mounting for probationary IAS officer Puja Khedkar. Her district training in Maharashtra has been cancelled by the government amid selection row. Her training has been put on hold. In fact, Puja Khedkar to return to Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, Mussoorie by July 23rd. Of course, she came under spotlight initially surrounding her demands for facilities not available to probationary officers in the IAS. Her high-handedness, misuse of power came to fore. In fact, the controversy intensifying after allegations of submitting fake disability and OBC certificates to clear civil services exam surfaced. As far as allegations of misuse of power is concerned, she allegedly used a red beacon light on her Audi car, got Maharashtra government written on it without permission. This car has been confiscated by Pune police. There were allegations that she also made repeated requests for a private cabin, car, living quarters, peon, even before her joining duty. Now, but more importantly, she's accused of posing as an OBC non-creamy layer candidate in her UPSC candidature. She claimed she was visually and mentally disabled, and she allegedly lied about her mental and visual condition to secure an officer's post despite an unremarkable score in the ultra-competitive exam. Now, she submitted certificates that in fact were allegedly obtained fraudulently from a district hospital. Of course, she was transferred from Pune to Vashim after the allegations in fact surfaced against her, including that she in fact lied to secure an OBC certificate. So now the union government has of course constituted a single member committee to verify the candidature claims and other details of Puja Khedkar following this controversy over her alleged misuse of power as a civil servant. The UPSC also directing Maharashtra government to examine her caste and disability certificate amid allegations that she used the fraudulent means to secure position.
Coming to you, Mr. Azad, first, how do you see this episode, because this is just not one woman but the entire family that seems to have gamed the system, and a system that is considered so difficult and so important. How do you see behavior such as this, and why was there no check?
Well, there are two things I would like to say here. One is the complete negligence on the part of the government authorities to look into these things, and secondly is always the indecision in our system to take a tough action by any of the officers. Imagine for so many days the IAS being a premier service And we are hearing so many things about it, all because of one individual who has virtually ripped the system apart. By now, she should have been discharged. Number one, she never went to the medical institute to prove her disability. And the duty officer of the AIMS kept calling her. The duty officer must have reported this to the DOPT, must have reported to the UPSC, must have reported to the concerned individuals wherever. The personal department must have reported it everywhere. But no one thought even once to give her a show cause and discharge her, because there are two. One is the AIS conduct rules and one is the All India probational rules. The probational rules, if she's just not found fit because she is not behaving like an officer, nor does she have any prospects of becoming a good one, because she has broken all morals. Present of an Audi, for example, the collector itself should have issued a departmental inquiry against her. Right. Because, Audi was given to her as a present. There were 27 challans. So, it's a series of not mishaps. It's a series of well-calculated kind of, intrigues which they had planned on the system. Right. Look at the cabinet secretary. He sees it every day. He should have taken action. Or even the personnel minister. So I think it's the fall of the system. Otherwise, the system is not that bad. There are thousands of honest and outstanding young and IAS officers, and imagine their plight when they look at a case like this.
Right. That's very well said. Ripping the system apart. Mr. Mahesh, how do you respond to this? Because, she was also somebody who's throwing her weight around. Her family was also involved in this. Do you think IAS officers also have to be trained in not just proper public conduct, but there needs to be proper filtering of sorts to ensure that people like this are exposed, specifically, when the time comes?
Well, first of all, let me say that Miss Pooja suffers from the qualities of mind and character. And I very much agree with Mr. Azhar when he talks about the negligence on the part of the government. Here I would like to add that it was just not the negligence on the part of the government, but here also, we also have to examine what was the role of the SDM. How did he issue that non-creamy OBC certificate? Now, she was not covered under the financial criteria of 8 lakhs, which was fixed by the DOPT in 2017. Second point, the father is a gazetted officer. If he is a gazetted officer, if he becomes class 1 after the age of 40, his wards cannot have the kind of the facilities to avail the OBC quota under the non-creamy layer. Number 3, what has been the role of the sub-divisional magistrate who issued the certificate? The role of the doctors who issued the disability certificate? The role of father? If this certificate was obtained by her father when she was a minor, what was the role of the father under section 120B? So it is, and then you look at the misconduct of this, the brazen misconduct of this IAS probationer on training itself. Her absorptive capacity of power is so low. Well, you cannot blame the entire tribe of civil services, the IAS, the premier service.
Right.
In fact, she's a black sheep, but all of them are not. They are very bright people, very brilliant and very honest people.
Absolutely.
So in my view, she must be discharged forthwith after an inquiry is held.
Right. Mr.
Number
Krishna,
2,
yes.
Criminal cases needs to be registered forthwith under section 177, 191, giving false evidence, giving false information, section 120B, all. So there has to be a kind of, there's also a criminality involved.
Absolutely. Mr. Krishna, would you like to respond to that? Both our panelists are saying that she needs to be discharged as soon as possible. But, there's one more important thing that both of them also talked about, the authenticity of various certificates submitted by her to the UPSC, one of them indicating visual impairment, and of course the others which have all come under scrutiny now. In fact, I was looking at X, and so many bureaucrats are also being in some ways quote unquote exposed. Do you think that there needs to be a proper review of this procedure of awarding certificates as to what really happens, who comes for this AIMS medical survey, who doesn't? Do you think that is something that is needed?
Yes, I think we have been hearing about the mischief going on in respect of certification for the disability issues, particularly after the act was made, Person with Disability, their Welfare Act. And I think it is high time. Specifically, the case of Pooja is subject matter of inquiry, so I would not like to go much into the detail of that particular case. But as a sample example, if we take, I think it's very important to identify, because many complaints we are hearing in the media and in the society that people are getting the certificate for disability by fraudulent means. And it's a tricky thing, what percentage and so on. It becomes to an extent subjective also, and sometimes it is misused. So that is one thing that we have to review, this arrangement of certification. And number two, I would say that this also is an example where the probationers who are in field for training, how they are being observed, because this is shaping time. People are shaping up. And you see, the society looks up to the probationer as if they are the full-fledged IAS officers of, very high seniority. They don't distinguish that the person is a probationer or what. And so the people lose their mind also. The head doesn't remain on the shoulder. And people think that they are. So it is high time that the trainees are to be made aware that they are undergoing training and not there to enjoy any power, because when there is a power, there is responsibility also. But this kind of behavior shows that there is an understanding only of the so-called power, but no understanding of the responsibilities. And responsibilities include ethical behavior. How you behave in public is very important. In the conduct rules, the behavior in public is very, very critical. And therefore, it is high time that the Mussoorie Academy, where these are trained, by law it is so. Government instructions are that the Bahadur Shastri Academy shall monitor the training of the probationer throughout the 2-year probationary period, whether they are in the academy or they are in the field or they are anywhere. So in this case, the director has recalled the officer. All right. But this is probably the only case where an officer has been recalled during training.
Right.
Now, it should happen. It should become a routine that whenever the officer, and number three, I think that the officer was not monitored closely all these months that she was undergoing training. So the monitoring arrangements have to be made, more scientific and more cogent, more comprehensive, and the academy should be doing it more frequently. At least 200 officers in field, at least 4 or 5 should be called every year in the midst of training to the academy when they are found amiss and not listening to the guidance. Then it will set the tone, they will become disciplined during the probation itself.
Yes, taking off from what you say, Mr. Azad, is there some specific module in the training that these bureaucrats undergo in Mussoorie on, something that teaches them on what public conduct is, what is expected of them? I know these are such basic questions, but, misuse of privilege is not restricted to Puja Khedkar. I have seen so many bureaucrats sort of misuse their privileges. So it really, at some point it just, yes, of course, she did it too much and, there was just too much. But we all know of instances of bureaucrats, isn't it, who have misused the rights that they have, privileges that they have. What is it that is taught to them when it comes to public conduct?
Well, Vasudha, I was just coming to this. Of course, the civil services misuses its facility. Of course, they use it. And by and large, they are overlooked. That is the issue. And that's why I said right in the beginning, because our system is lax, our system is negligent. And another thing, the officers who some of them are absolutely brilliant, and even the brilliant note sheet writers don't like to take decisions. They would never like to be tough, and therefore no decision is taken on the officers who are misusing privileges, who are doing wrong things, who are buying properties and land on master plan. They're doing all kinds of things. So there are two issues here. One is, a training module is fine. All good things are taught in the training. But tell me, Vasudha, do you really need training at that stage where you know exactly that what is expected of you, what your responsibilities are there? All good things are taught in the police academy and the IAS academy. The question is, no action is ever taken against anyone. If you take 5 salutary punishments if you give, that will come as a lesson to all the people. But never any action is taken. That's the whole problem. Even in this Pooja case, see, what have we done? Under the one committee, it will be there. This committee will give a report. Then that thing will go somewhere. She's a probationer. Discharge her. And you can do that under the All India probationer rules. That is what should have been done by now.
Yes, that would have also sent out a message of, assurance to other people, And let me also ask this to Mr. Mahesh, there was something that was very important that you pointed out, that was with regard to the misuse of reservation policy. And those questions were also raised about Ms. Khedkar's appointment in the civil services under the OBC non-creamy layer. And there was this RTI activist who had pointed out, in fact, a person with a family income of above 8 lakh per annum is from the creamy layer, and he or she is not eligible for reservation benefits. But clearly there have been attempts to misuse that policy. How does one even prevent that? Because that is so core to social justice that, not just the government, but something that our country needs to focus on.
Madam, first, there is a need for honesty in reservation. Reservation is not a kind of something which you are giving. It's a duty which has been cast in the constitution of the country. But how honestly do you implement reservation? That is a very big challenge. And when there is a financial kind of you draw a financial line, you draw a kind of a financial status of rupees 8 lakhs. So if I'm 8 lakh rupees plus 1 rupees, I become creamy. And if it is 8 lakh rupees below, I am not, I am non-creamy. So these are some of so one has to do a lot of due diligence on the issues of the economic criteria to reach at the real figure, that is whether it is 8 lakh or below. That's a very big challenge. And let me tell you, you have affirmative action in various parts of the world to have diversity. But nowhere you find a kind of this diversity with an economic criteria. Now that's a very big challenge, that with social backwardness, you're also kind of measuring the financial aspect of that candidate. Of course, this is the policy of the government. This is the law which has to be respected. So we have to do due diligence before a certificate is issued. This is very, very important. Another point I wanted to highlight was the judgment of the Supreme Court in the case of Kumari Madhavi Patil versus Additional Commissioner Tribal Development. And the Supreme Court of India had passed directions that look, the state government must have a kind of a scrutiny committee to verify the social status. Every state must have it. Now this is already there. Supreme Court passed a series of kind of, in its judgment gave a number of directions to be followed. Are we following that? That is my question.
That's very important. Mr. Krishna, would you like to respond to that? Also, this very important question that, this was an influential family, sir. Is there a danger that parents who have been part of the system, who know the system, are also helping their children game the system? Is that something that bureaucrats or the system needs to worry about?
Well, that problem is there not only in government service but everywhere. That family members, give undue help to their youngsters to rise in wherever it is. So that is one part. But I would think that the malaise, the problem of misconduct and corruption, etc., is widely rampant. But in the probationary, and because it is rampant, because there is hardly any arrangement, there is hardly much arrangement for monitoring and supervising. In an integrated manner, one-to-one supervision is all right, but in probationary system it is not so. The Mussoorie Academy, supported by the state government on one hand and the DOPT on the other hand, is supposed to closely monitor the probationers. And these probationers are looking that the world is itself highly corrupt. They are observing, and there is a tendency to slip into that mold. If this is the time that they should be taken, guided very well, closely monitored and guided, and in case they are slipping, they should be cautioned. If that is not done at that time, then the danger will multiply later, and the chances of often doing the mistake, bigger mistakes in future will be much more. So very high responsibility on the Mussoorie Academy, which is, I'm not saying it is my wish or something. It is very much provided in the government regulations, circulars, guidelines. This is the role of the Mussoorie Academy. But I also know that the academy does not have so many staff senior officers to observe the performance of 400 probationers are there in field of two batches at a given point of time. So there is an issue. There is an issue, but it has to be resolved. We cannot let the things float like this anymore. Something good has happened. In this bad thing, something good has happened, that we all have become now conscious. And I hope I'm sure also that systemic improvement will also be initiated besides taking action against the officer.
Thank you, Mr. Krishna. Thank you, Mr. Azad. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mahesh, for speaking to NDTV.